And my job is all about how can we make more crackers with lesser cost.
Today, I'm speaking with Talha Rashid, Continuous Improvement Manager at Handi Foods. His food job is all about finding better ways to process and manufacture foods using data and teamwork. In this episode, we will unpack what this food job actually looks like and what the work is like day to day.
This is how the journey starts from identifying where your biggest problems are, converting those into projects, developing teams, and then working with those teams towards their resolution.
We explore how analytical, thoughtful personalities can grow into visible leaders.
And you're saying your analytical skills need to be really good. And at the same time, your people skills need to be really good. And that's how you become successful in continuous improvement.
And how to show your strengths during an interview.
Yeah, so my job title, let's start with that. It's in the field of continuous improvement. It's a growing field. A lot of companies are adopting continuous improvement just like mine. So I work at Handi Foods right now, and I would say that I am the inaugural leader in the field of continuous improvement. So I'm the first person that they actually ever hired in this position. It's a new department, a new team, and that is because Handi Foods, it's actually a company that makes crackers. Different kinds, different flavored crackers. They make them in Canada. They sell them in US to all the retail grocery chains, you name it, basically, like all your big Costco's and Walmarts and Trader Joe's in the US. So they make crackers for all of these companies. So yeah, they have been growing really fast, and they have very high growth expectations. Even in the next 5 years, they're expecting to become twice the amount of size where they are. And of course, like in this kind of an environment where, it's not typical that companies are growing this fast in this economy, but some companies are, and like Handi Foods is definitely one of those lucky companies. When you're improving so much and your capacities are increasing so much, you do need someone who would guide them through this process in a more standardized way, in a more standardized approach. And that's where my job comes in, to help them maneuver around through these times.
Okay, wow. I'm definitely going to dive a little bit more, but I think the first question I got to ask is just like, what is continuous improvement? Like, that is your role, but for some person, they might not be familiar what that even means. Could you just give like a general description of it?
Yeah. So, for example, at Handi Foods, we make food, we make crackers. And my job is all about how can we make more crackers with lesser cost? How do we reduce our cost more? And at the same time, something that's really important is that we're not one of those like shrinkflation kind of people that like, oh, the package used to be like 100 grams. Now, let's just do like 80 grams. There you go. Project done. We've got good savings. So it's definitely not one of those, but it's more about like, how do we make our processes more efficient? How can we become more productive? So how can we work with our, for example, labor so that they're more productive? How can we standardize their practices, the way that we're doing things? If one thing works and another thing does not work, like how do we standardize that approach that works? If our lines, our manufacturing processes are running a certain way with certain speeds, how do we increase them? And the third part of it is about the waste. How do we reduce our wastages so that we're more profitable in the industry? We're able to make more money for the company, and at the same time, we're able to transfer some of those cost reductions to our customers for the better good, reducing our prices and stabilizing and keeping them more stable.
Okay, so it really touches upon everything from, as you said, packaging to the actual process to the labor. Like, you could be really playing a role in all of those different things.
Yes, so that's the beauty of it. That's how I think about it, that you get an opportunity within continuous improvement to be working with all sorts of departments. So in my time at this company at Handi Foods, I have done projects with HR as well. I've worked with finance. You get to work with supply chain. You get to work, of course, with production, maintenance, sanitation, all the departments, you name it.
Wow. So let's talk about a typical day, or do you have a typical day? Like, what does someone like the major job responsibilities look like? So we know that you're making the continuous improvement, but how do you start to make those changes? So tell me, like, what does a typical week look like for you?
Yeah. So I would say a lot of the improvements, they're very data driven. And that's one big part of continuous improvement, that we're not basing things off of, he said, she said kind of a situation. It's more about what does the data tell us? These days, for a lot of companies, there's no shortage of data. if we have shortage of is people who can actually review that data, analyze that data in a really good way, and then make useful judgments out of that. Those judgments, once you take those out, you turn them into actions, and then those actions are what would give you good benefits for the company. So if you ask what a typical day would look like, I'd say like the first thing would be to identify where our problems are based on the data that we have. So those themes that I was talking about, do we have a labor problem? Do we have a speed problem? Do we have a waste problem? What is our biggest problem? What is eating up all of our cash? So the first part of it would be to, of course, analyze and see whatever data we have. And at the start, I feel like I lied a little bit that we have abundant data in certain cases. We do, and in certain cases, like the specific information that you need, you might not have it. So in those cases, you'd be that person who's going to be doing specific targeted studies on the line. So to break this down, let's say I had data for waste, that this is how much waste is being generated. This is where like all the dough that we throw away, this is how many kgs we throw away. But we don't really know why do we throw that away. So for that, you'd actually do some study. You'd go to the production floor. You'd see like, okay, so whatever we waste, why do we actually waste that? So you're literally standing over there and you're seeing like, okay, so what exactly happens on a typical day? Sometimes you're able to use some technology. If you have some kind of sensors or if you have some kind of cameras, you're tracking things through that. But the traditional way would be that you're standing and you're actually getting all those weights done and you're seeing at which spots or for what reasons do you get those problems and those wastes. So yeah, generally this is how the journey starts, from identifying where your biggest problems are, converting those into projects, developing teams, and then working with those teams towards their resolution. So one step at a time, like every single day, you have that open mindset of what can I improve today? And towards those big projects that I have, how can I make a step forward today?
So it sounds like you are working alongside others in the organization. Like it's not a separate, like you might be a separate group, but you're not necessarily like off on your own. Like you're very integrated working with others.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. So when it comes to continuous improvement, you can never do this alone. Because the way that I see it, or any other continuous improvement person should see it, is that we know the least when it comes to how different problems are occurring and what's actually happening. It's all those individuals who are associated to those positions, those roles. They are our eyes. They are our brains. So I wouldn't know anything if they weren't like the team of those from those individual projects, if they weren't giving me all this information about, oh, you know what, this is happening and this is why it's happening. So they would give me some ideas, and those ideas I'd be like, okay, so you know what, I need to confirm what's happening. That's when I would start my studies.
And in thinking about going back to the data aspect, because I feel like in undergraduate we learn a little bit about data analysis, but not really in depth. Like you might get like a calculus class, or you might get something like that. Was learning how to analyze data something that you picked up on this role? Was it something that you built up moving to it? Was it something that you took coursework in? Like, how did you start to learn if you're data driven? Where did you pick up that skill to analyze the data?
I would say a lot of credit goes to school. So
Okay.
Before the call, we were talking about it, that I'm also from Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly known as Ryerson, but that's the new brand name. So yeah, being from this university and also doing my bachelor's in engineering, I think I would say that's what the groundwork is. That's where like a lot of that education really helped. And I wouldn't say that, that particular class or like that math skill is what really helped, but the whole problem solving skill is something that's what you're learning in school. So if you get a problem and you don't know what the solution is, and that's what happens most of the time in continuous improvement, that I don't know what tools to use because this is a completely unique and different problem. I haven't encountered it before. But that same troubleshooting mindset of like using different kinds of techniques at school, and also like managing like your time and you're learning different skills at school, I think that really is something that stays with you, and you're able to use that to go forward and build your analytical skills along the way.
I love that, because I think that, some people are like, why am I learning this? Is this ever going to be applied to the real world? And it's so hard sometimes to see in the moment, will this actually help me in the long run? But sometimes it's not even just about the technical skill. Sometimes it's the soft skill in the background, like you mentioned, problem solving. Doing that ongoing problem solving is something you do constantly throughout school. So it's good to know that that thing went, like speaking about skills and, thinking about the future. Is there anything that has surprised you while you've been in this role? Like you didn't expect this coming into it that maybe you would want to tell someone?
Hmm. Yeah, so my role requires me to work with different functions and so many different teams and so many different departments. Something that really surprises me, especially when you go to the production floor, and you see a lot of individuals who are working on the production floor. They're working pretty much on those the lower waged or like the starting positions. Um, the the gap that I see over there in terms of capability, or actually not even the gap, the the capability range that we have over there. And I also see the beauty of Canada. Like a lot of individuals you'd see like, oh, they're actually an engineer and they're so qualified, and the amount of input that they're able to bring in to the job. And you see like all different kinds of professionals coming in from back home who've had really good careers and really good professionals from back home. And then they're working at like different like laborious jobs and those entry level positions. But at the same time, the amount of wealth that they bring into an organization, it's only a matter of the organizations learning to use those skill sets. And the more that they're able to use these individuals, they would grow within companies, and the companies would be able to grow so fast. So that whole range of capability that you see, like you don't really expect that, but you see like all sorts of, as I said, like professions. You'd see like accountants and like financial analysts, and you'd see like engineers as well. And it's pretty common that you'd find like very highly qualified individuals in production.
I know this might be a little bit of a silly question, but like, how did you find out about individuals' backgrounds? Was it just simple conversations at lunch, or did they just bring it up, or did you actually specifically ask about that?
Yeah. So I didn't ask about it. It's something that like comes up by itself to me because, for example, when I'm doing any line study and I'm asking different questions from the people on the floor, and I'd ask them like, oh, so I'm doing this study and this is the math behind it. This is how I'm doing it, and they're able to like move one step forward than me, and they're like, oh, you know what? Like, yeah, this is how you did it. Yeah, that's how I do it every day, and I'm calculating this and I'm calculating this, and I'm like in absolute awe. I was like, oh my God, like okay, so like tell me more. Like, how do you do this? And as I said, like tying it back to your eyes and your brains is like all the peoples that you're working with. So they really strengthen you. And then sometimes I'll be discussing about them with their leaders, and I'd be like, oh yeah, like this guy, he was great. Like he knows all the math behind all this. And they'd be like, oh, his like previous jobs that he's done or his background, and this is what it looks like. And that's when I learned like so much more about them.
Oh, that's cool. Like it comes out naturally. And I have heard that there's so many qualified individuals that are working on the line, and, they're not like they're paying attention. They have the background, and like they're an asset to the like individuals like yourself who can help improve the whole project. But it makes me think as well with this type of role. It sounds like you also have to be like you couldn't be introverted, or it like am I mistaken with that? Like you need to be able to also properly be able to speak with others.
Hmm. So I was actually going to bring it up, and I was going to bring it up to mention one of the key attributes or some of the key attributes that make you successful in being in continuous improvement. So I've seen like quite a lot of variation. So one side of that, I would say, divergence is that we have individuals who are very good analytically. And then we have some individuals who are really good, like really good people skills. And when it comes to continuous improvement, you're kind of like mixing both of these skill sets, and you're saying like, your analytical skills need to be really good. And at the same time, your people skills need to be really good. And that's how you become successful in continuous improvement. And as I was saying, like sometimes I could see like people so far apart with very good analytical skills and like very good people skills, but they're not both combined. But that's what's required to be very successful in this position.
I guess my question is, do you think that someone could still find success in this role if they have the more analytical skills? Because I find that sometimes it can be a struggle coming out of school, having those people skills because you're so used to the people that are around you. Do you think that you could enter in this role maybe needing to improve on the people skills, but still having that strong analytical skills?
Now, the answer for this is going to be an absolute yes. Um, and the reason for this is that all skills can be learned. And the other part of it that I have learned over time is that we learn to be different at work as compared to how we naturally might be. And the more years you gain working, the more you realize that like this is a skill. Like naturally, I might be a very introverted person, which is actually true about myself. But at work, when I'm going to be like when I'm having a meeting and when I go and have different discussions with individuals, I'm not going to be myself. So I'll transform into that extroverted person, which I know it's a requirement for my position, for my role. So yeah, like as I said, like it's something that we can learn. um, and for that, I think the first step would be to recognize that, yeah, this is where I'm lagging and this is what I need to work on. And once you cross that first step, you kind of apply continuous improvement on yourself as well.
Uh,
And you can.
okay, I like to hear that because, a lot of people do go into those data-driven type undergraduate degrees or things that are more analytical, and it is when you're new to the workforce, it can be hard to have those social skills because you're very used to being in the classroom or maybe only socializing. So it's good to know that it is recognized the skill, but you can also improve on the other soft skills because you mentioned everything can be learned. And speaking of learning as well for yourself, now that you have been out of school for a bit, how do you learn about new subjects? Because I don't think that this everything about continuous improvement. Like no one does. So how are you constantly learning about the new topics that you need to know?
Mhm. So I feel like your work, it really supports you. So different companies, like they would offer to get you into different trainings as well. For us, some of those trainings would be Lean Six Sigma, Green Belt, and then there's different levels of these belts. So there's like a yellow belt or a green belt, and then like there's black belts, just like how you have in karate. So
Mm.
it's pretty similar to that. And all they have to do is like building your analytical skills and learning more and more tools. So all those tools, you just keep them in your back pocket and something in the back of your mind, and you're as different projects come up, you're starting to use more and more of those tools. So yeah, there's like different certifications, and like a lot of like jobs they would offer those certifications, or if not, you're not getting trained on the job, then it's going to be more like you can do it on the side, and then companies have reimbursement programs, and you can actually get the costs reimbursed. So these are some of those trainings, and some of the other ones like which also tie into the people skills as well. One of them is going to be change management. So when we are working on different initiatives, like change is something that's inevitable. But people who are really working in their positions for quite a while, if anything changes, then we might turn them into change resistors. So that's the whole philosophy of like, how do you ensure that people don't turn into change resistors, but supporters? So there's like a training for change management that you can actually do. And yeah, like pretty similar to green belts and Lean Six Sigma companies do offer that as well.
Sorry, for those who might be listening, they might not be familiar with the term Lean Six Sigma. Would you just be able to I think you mentioned about the belts, but just could you explain in general what that is?
Mhm. So I would say Lean Six Sigma, it's a very quality-based tool, which ensures that we're reducing and minimizing our wastes. And we are doing that in a very statistical way. So we're reducing our waste by different percentages. And that's what Lean Six Sigma is all about. And you're able to monitor that and control that and ensure that it's consistent and sustainable. So all the math or all the data statistics that goes behind that, that's what covers within the Lean Six Sigma.
Okay. So is it like I'm trying to wrap my head around it a bit more. Is it like a set of questions that you go attach to every project? Is it like a framework?
Uh-huh.
I guess could you just maybe with an example explain a little bit more about how you actually use it?
Yeah, yeah. So in that case, I would split it up. I would split up what lean actually means. So let's start with that, and then I'll talk
Okay.
about the Six Sigma part. So when we're talking about lean, there's different kinds of tools that would help us to become more lean as an organization. Now, some of those tools, I would say like 5S, for example, organizing your workspace so that nothing is cluttered, everything is in a proper space. So that's a part of becoming more lean. Ensuring that however our performance is, you're making that performance visible. So a lot of the times, like, do we know if we're doing good as a company or if we're doing bad as a company, right? So financials are one metric, but how else can we break it down? Like maybe like when you go to the go see production, how many packs you're producing, how many cases you're making, maybe that could be a metric. So those kind of visibilities for everyone in an organization and to be working towards their improvement, I would call that more a part of lean, and also reducing all those different forms of wastes that we have on the production floor. So like doing different studies, like I would classify all that to be a part of lean.
Okay. And then is it something that you use every single time? Do you mix and match different tools? Like I would imagine that there's different solutions to a problem. Like how do you assess which solution is going to be the most effective for like your
Mm-hmm.
facility?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, as you said, like step number one is understanding what the problem is. Step number two is identifying what the root cause of that problem is. Once you know what the root cause of the problem is, that's when you can start thinking about what those different tools would be that would help you to apply the right solution. So for example, in terms of waste, we could be having a lot of waste on in an area, and that could be happening because the space is so unorganized. Like we're running out of things, but no one notified that we're running out of different materials. Once they're finished, that's when we're like, oh, we can't produce anything because we don't have that material, right? So that's when I would classify this into a 5S, which is one of the lean tools. So I'd classify that as a 5S problem, that you need to, and in one word, all 5S means is to organize your space. So I would say like that's the kind of project that we need to do, that we need to identify whatever needs to be in the space, whatever does not, take it all out, take it all away. So those would be the kind of principles that you'd start off with, right? Then some other problems could be that we don't even know if we're doing good or if we're doing bad because that visibility is not even there. So for that, you might want to set up like some kind of board. They're called visual performance management. So you'd set that up so that everyone who's working in an area, they would know like, oh, you know what? Like I made this many cases, let's say 100 cases in 1 hour, and that's amazing. So that's what my target was. Or maybe in another hour, I made like, let's say 50 cases and I'm really short. So you know what, we need to speed up, or like something's wrong. We had some issues. So making that visible so you would know like, oh, that's like a performance management kind of a problem. And that's the kind of tool that you need to apply. So it really depends on the problem is and what the root cause of that problem is once you identify that. And as I said, like all these different trainings, some of them on the job, you have all those tools in your back pocket and you're just like, just applying whatever works best based on that.
That kind of sounds a little bit fun. I don't know, some people don't like the idea of solving problems, but I could see that there would be a lot of satisfaction in seeing like
Oh,
something
yes.
that like you checked the data, you made this, and then you seeing that long-term solution. Like I could see that being pretty fun, honestly.
Definitely, definitely. So yeah, in this position, in this role, like I'd say like there's no single day which is going to be the same. Like every day it's like it's a new adventure, it's like a new problem that you're facing. So it's very fun like that.
Amazing. And I could totally see that. And I could see it being like for those individuals that really like to see something tangible with their work as well, because metrics are kind of nice that you can actually see the improvements.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So that's something that we're highly encouraged to do, that we're able to measure the impacts that we're bringing into the organization. And yeah, it's very rewarding and satisfying to see that.
Hey everyone, just jumping in for a second to say if you're finding this conversation inspiring and you're curious about where a career in food and beverage could take you, then you'll definitely want to check out Careers Now. Careers Now has an entire student resource hub where you can explore real stories from Ontario's food and beverage processing industry, including employer spotlights and co op experiences at companies like Conestoga Meats, Synopta, and Gailey Foods. It is a great way to see what jobs actually look like on the ground level and discover the wide range of roles that are available. Head over to CareersNOW.ca to start turning your passion into profession now. Thank you to our friends over at Careers Now for supporting this podcast episode. Now let's get back to this conversation.
And that also makes me think about students that are more so coming into the role. And I'm just thinking about maybe for like a job interview. And I'm not sure if you'd have any insights with this, but do you have any suggestions on how a student would be able to like show that, like how would they show that in like a job interview that they have that skill and that ability when they might be limited in work experience?
Mm-hmm. I think the first thing, like, because I've been doing a lot of interviews for different candidates within continuous improvement for a while. If it's any entry level position, what I personally look out for, even if they might not have all the experience, and of course, if they're fresh out, they definitely would not. Are they willing to learn new skills, and how willing are they? So just like, and that's something that you can detect through conversations, right? So showing that willingness that, yeah, like, we're here to learn and we'd like to learn these skills and we're excited about the position and the role. I think that goes a long way, like expressing that really shows like, like that's fine if they don't know that and we don't expect that, but they have that willingness. So I would say like that's one thing which it's a soft skill. So you can't really measure it or put a number to it, but definitely like that's something that I look out for.
Okay, so it comes through, they would show it through conversation or like the excitement for the role as they're interviewing?
I would say so.
Okay.
And also they're not coming in blank for the interview, so they know what the position is all about and they've done their homework. So that really makes a difference, but shows that they're serious about it. They are actually considering continuous improvement as a part of their career or as a part of their future, and it's not like they don't know what this position actually is. So doing your homework, understanding what the position is, what the responsibilities could be like, and what the company is also all about.
And if someone had examples like through volunteering, even if it was like an unrelated club, let's just say, I don't know, a volleyball club, and they acted as like they made a continuous improvement, would that be something that you would take into consideration?
Yeah, definitely. I think continuous improvement is a very broad field. So even outside of food, like it even today, it surprises me the different industries where continuous improvement professionals work, and it's only growing. Like I even see like CI positions in the finance sector now, like
Really?
all the banks, like they have those positions opening up. I've only been seeing it for the past, I'd say like 5, 6 years, that a lot of like those leadership, very nice positions showing up over there as well. There's CI within mining sector, and you think about it, and like all those different companies and those different sectors, they have these kind of positions. So you can apply continuous improvement no matter what your position is, and also like on yourself as well. So as individuals, as humans, we're also looking to improve every single day, right? So like, and these could be so many examples that you can share that like you're passionate about this kind of a position and this kind of a role. So yeah, like it just doesn't have to be like that you've worked in a specific role and then you share those examples.
That's really good to know because again, coming out of school, a lot of people have co-op experiences, which is great, but not everyone has that opportunity to do co-op, and it can be difficult to figure out how to show yourself and get that first role. So knowing that you can use even like unrelated to the workplace can also be applied. That's a good tip.
Definitely. You know what? I would love to hear someone if they were telling a story like, this is what my grades were in my first semester, and this is how I applied continuous improvement on myself, and in my final years, this is how I improved my grades, and these are some of the principles, right? That really shows that you have that growth mindset. We don't have to be good at everything that we do, and we're never going to be, but it's all about like that growth that you're looking to build yourself.
we talked about the interview side of it, but now I'm just thinking about, so when someone gets into the role, what makes someone effective at it, like long term, or even just when they first get hired? What would you say makes someone successful at this role?
To answer this question, I'm going to talk about company culture. And I know a lot of people talk about it that, know the company culture. So in your first few days, when you step into this position, actually any other position as well, but especially for continuous improvement, you need to understand what the company culture is like for continuous improvement. So our jobs from one company to another company, there's quite a lot of variation in what we do. And there's quite a lot of variation in terms of what the leadership wants us to do as well, who hired us. So their support, sometimes they would want to be really hands off. Sometimes they'd want to be like, oh, you know what? I want updates about this, this, and this. And like they're very like on a micro level, they want to be very involved with things. So I would say like the starting point would be to understand how much your leadership wants to be involved and what are the priorities when it comes to the leadership. What do they actually care about? What do they want you to work on? That's, I would say, would be step number one. Once you know that, then you should be working on those areas that are defined to you, and then share progress and like share like updates with the teams about it, that this is what you're doing. Um, on the other side, if you did not do it and you find something that's important, but the leadership does not, it's very easy to lose their support. And if you lose their support, like there's very less chances of success for any project.
Okay. And how do you assess like what the leadership is asking for? Can you directly ask, like just directly ask, is this what you're looking for? Because I think that is, again, a struggle when you're newer to a role. Like for myself, for example, I was so nervous to ask questions, not because I didn't want to know the answer, but because I didn't want to be seen as someone who should have known it because I've already asked the question.
Mhm.
Is it appropriate to ask a lot of questions when you first start out?
Hmm. I think it's absolutely appropriate. I would even take it a step back and I would ask questions like these even in the interview. So one really good question to ask even in the interview is, what does a successful candidate look like for this particular position? And in your mind, you're thinking like, okay, so like these are the things that I need to be focusing on if I were hired for this position, right? So you kind of get an idea, you sense how things would be, even about the company culture, before you join the company. So that's would be like step number one, that you actually ask questions like these in the interview. Once you join the company, your hiring manager or the person that you're going to be working in very closely with, you should set up some time with them, maybe like after a week or maybe after 2 weeks. So and you ask them openly that, so this is what I've learned so far, like what would you want me to learn more? What would be the direction that you'd say, like, should I be focusing on? What would make me successful? So asking that same question again once you join after some time, and then putting in your efforts towards that, that's going to be very beneficial.
That's a really good piece of advice because I was going to ask you about how do you even assess the company culture, because sometimes a lot of exposure just comes through the company website and then maybe seeing through LinkedIn. And you might not always know the company culture because it might not be well promoted. But I like how you're saying that in the interview, if you can ask and you can assess if that's going to match something. And then again, you getting that checkpoint and it gives you a data point, I guess you could almost say, about how you yourself could improve.
So definitely, yeah. So if you ask the right questions at the right time, I think like it's a very good way to assess the company culture.
And I guess now taking it a step backwards for students that are still in school, they're not quite looking for their role, but they're listening and they're thinking, okay, I want to get into continuous improvement. What should they start doing right now while they're still in school?
hmm I cannot emphasize more on being very good at Excel.
Okay.
So the extent of work that we use Excel for, it blows my mind. And it's so useful. And there's so many different tricks and tools that you can have that would make your analytical skills to be so good. Um, and so fast as well at the same time. So I know even in school you're learning so many different softwares. Like sometimes you're doing like Minitab and like other softwares. Some of the trainings that I was mentioning as well, like we use different softwares for those as well. I would say they're more advanced, but not everyone and every organization has those different softwares, but everyone definitely has Excel. So using Microsoft Excel and learning different kinds of tools, like I'd start off with like all those different VLOOKUPs and those if statements. That's where you start off from, and then you go towards your pivot tables. You're analyzing data on it, and it goes up to macros and all those other skills that you can learn on Excel. It's just amazing, and you can analyze so much data just through it.
Wow. It's so interesting to hear that just like, we have all these technological changes in that, but Excel still is such a key cornerstone for it.
Definitely. And recently, since you talk about like recent technological changes, ChatGPT and like all those different AI models, they would be your best friends in the future. And I know how widely I use it for my position. So if there's any like calculations that I'm checking or any like analysis that I'd be doing, like confirming that, getting those gut check feelings that we used to have in the past, like just throwing that into like an AI model like that, and they doing that confirmation for you, or actually sometimes like helping you out with like what would be the best way to calculate this or that for your work. Like it's super helpful to use that.
And would you say for your role, like looking into the future, you're going to probably have more incorporation of tools like that? I guess looking into the future for yourself, what are something that you're looking to improve on as you continue to continuously improve in your own role?
I think it's definitely going to be the use of more tools like this, which make work easier and faster for me. So before in the past, like I had to figure out like what's the best way to know like how much waste we have, and like I've got like this big pile of data. I can actually like rather than like me skimming through like all the data and using all the Excel whiz work, I can also on the side put that into like an AI model and like get some conclusions out of that. One thing that I also like to talk about is like not depending on AI models 100%, but we should be using them to do confirmatory work for us most of the time, or to just like navigate us, and then we always have to use like our judgment and base decisions on that. So yeah, we don't want to lose our judgment and just base things off of it, but build on it using these tools as supporters.
And I know that for you were saying about confirmation on certain things, but those that are newer to the role, they might not have the experience yet to know that they're confirming on something, or maybe I'm misunderstanding. But how would you say someone should learn with these models if they're not yet at a point where they can use it to confirm?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. See, the basics would always remain the basics. So I could talk about a specific example over here that if you were doing a study of what the product weight is right now, and you collected different samples, and you had like, let's say 100 samples, and for each of those you got that this is what the product weights look like. So this is where your school comes in really handy as well, that you're checking what your standard deviations are, and you're checking like what your mean is and your median is. So the basics would be that, and then of course you can use different AI models to confirm like what these numbers actually look like. So the basics would be there. They would be coming in either from education or like some like prior knowledge for sure.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that, because that is something that I've been fortunate enough with my own education that I've kind of been a little one step ahead before the models get strong. So I kind of have that background knowledge, but I can imagine for those that are learning a bit, like as maybe the model's ahead of them, you don't want to become dependent, but sometimes you don't really know if you're confirming it, or because you just don't have that experience. So that does help clarify it a little bit.
Yeah, I would say to add to it, don't think of it as when you come into an organization, you're starting everything from scratch, because you're not, right? A lot of those things, a lot of that infrastructure, a lot of that knowledge is going to be built for you. There will be some situations where you're actually doing that and you're actually creating new information, but building upon what's already there. So you would have like mentors and guides and like colleagues and coworkers, all of these individuals as well, who are going to be like helping you out and like through this process of transitioning and learning all this information as well.
That's actually another good point as well. Yes, there's people that have been working at your organization for many years, and they know the processes, and they're there for guidance. You're not just starting your own department and you're the lead. I mean,
Yeah.
that might happen further on in your career, but not right out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last question that we actually never somehow talked about was just how you got into this role, because I don't know if like you're fresh out of high school and you're like, I want to go into continuous improvement. Would you be able to just walk through some key steps to how you got into this role?
Yeah, I'd say fate.
Okay, that's a good one.
So interestingly, once I graduated from my university with an engineering degree, my degree is in mechanical engineering. The first thing that someone very smart had told me was to get a job, and that was like it's a very good advice, by the way. Let me clarify that and break it down. It was get any job, whatever you can find, just get the job, because that takes off the load of like, I'm not doing anything. Like I'm unemployed. Like I got to do something, and that timer is going on in your mind constantly. So just get whatever job you can. If you can find something in your field, very good. If you can't, then still like whatever job you get, like just start it. And of course, on the side, while you're doing that job, if that's not what your career is, you can always look and search for positions with what your interest is and what your actual career is going to be in the future. And that advice actually worked out for me. So my first job was in the IT department. It was a starting position within IT. I didn't really have the skill set in IT, but actually that position didn't really require me to do that, because I needed to work with different vendors and build different portfolios and provide different like presentation supports for the company. That company's name was GlaxoSmithKline, so a pharmaceutical company. Within that company, I was able to network, because of course you're working in a big organization now, so you're networking with all these different people from different departments. I networked with someone who turned out to be my future boss within the field of continuous improvement.
Okay.
So that really worked out for me. And when I started in continuous improvement, it was a new department over there as well. They did have quite a lot of history with different programs within CI, but it was a new department, a new way of doing things is that what they were building. And I actually fell in love with it, because it was so, you can imagine different, so many new learnings that you need to have. And it was a very global kind of a function. And I was learning so many different things in that position, working with different departments as well, different teams. So I got quite a lot of exposure working with different levels and different teams as well. And I actually fell in love with it. And then I was like, I'm going to spend the next 10 years within this position and more.
I love that. And I love that tidbit as well about we're just getting a job. And especially if it's in a bigger company, there's more opportunities for lateral movements. So you can talk to different people, and maybe that role that you started off with is not the one for you, but through a process of speaking with the right people, you can just move around and you don't necessarily even have to leave the company.
Absolutely. That's what happened to me. Mm-hmm.
You know, you've loved working in continuous improvement. Like, what is it that's made you stay?
Mm-hmm. It's hard to get bored in this position, is how I would put it, because like the different teams, and then I'm in manufacturing, so I work at 2 different locations. In my past job, I was responsible for 7 or 8 manufacturing sites. So you're overseeing things at a higher level, at a broader, like you're getting a bird's eye view of all the different ways operations are working. So you get a very good holistic surface level knowledge of quite a lot of things, of how the business functions and how different roles function and where the bigger problem is. So you're not actually a CEO, but you get that same vision of what a CEO would have in a lot of ways.
Well, I think I'm going to leave it there. I think that's the perfect spot to end, because I can just hear the passion in your voice and how much that you love this role. And I think that it sounds like a amazing role for someone who wants a job that no 2 days are the same, constantly improving, getting to see their work flourish within and see the changes. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and sharing a bit more. I hope that these tips like really help the students that are listening.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm so glad for a platform like this where students are able to learn from real experiences, real professionals, and know what's coming up for them in the future. That's amazing.
Thank you everyone so much for listening. If you want to learn more about careers in engineering, then be sure to check out my conversation with Mohammed Kathawala, Senior Project Engineer at AgroNeo, to learn how a background in engineering can lead to a career in food safety within project management.